by constantly talking about gayness. But make sure we hide the negative aspects. Fourth, and you see this on TV all the time, you know, Will and Grace and all these wonderful programs on TV. It's all there. You ever see the pain, the unhappiness? No. You see these happy-go-lucky characters. That's why, by the way, they invented the word gay. As Richard said, gay means happy. And they said, well, if we call the word gay, well, we'll have a much better time. And as a matter of fact, it's very interesting. Again, in these Gallup polls that I'm referring to, they ask the same question to people about how do you feel about people who are gay and how do you feel about people who are homosexual. And guess what? There's a 10-point swing, depending upon which word you use. A 10-point swing, depending upon which word you use. Fourth point, let's keep the message focused on gay issues. Do not fight for other causes. Don't get enmeshed in all these other liberal causes. Make sure all the liberal causes work for us, we not for them. Portray, number 5, portray homosexuals as victims, not as threats to the status quo. Present them as victims, because American and Western European society believes that obviously if you're a victim, you've got to be sensitive to your needs. So we're going to become victims. 6, let's give potential supporters a cause they can relate to. We can't say, give us equal rights, but we can say, give us, you can't discriminate against us. Don't ask, they said in the book, don't ask for support for the practice of homosexuality. Just ask to be left alone. Very subtle differential here. 7, make gays look good. Portray them as every man and every woman. One of the things I love in the book, in their book, which I repeated in here, is how they talk about, look, what we got to do is rewrite history. Let's make sure that all the dead people are gay. I mean, like Abraham Lincoln is gay. Didn't you know that? And let's go back to the Bible. Jonathan was gay. I mean, thank you, Jonathan and David were gay. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they say in the book, by the way, the reason we got to do this is because they can't sue us for libel. They're dead. They say it. I mean, they're brilliant. They really came out. They understood what they were doing. Finally, after you do all this stuff, now we got to turn the tables. Because now we got to make sure the opponents look bad. We got to make them look evil and victimizing. Make them look like homo haters, homophobes. That's what they are. You're a homophobe. Did you know that? And you all of a sudden you cringe and you go backwards and say, oh my God, I'm a homophobe. Oh. Brilliant strategy. Each of these 8 tactics, they said in the book, has to be handled in such a way as to accomplish 3 things. 1, they said, we got to employ emotional, powerful images so as to desensitize, jam, and or convert the undecided and the confused. Desensitize them. Make sure that they, that they understand that if they're confused, that they're going to be on our side. We've got to win them over. This is a campaign, don't forget. Second, they said, we have to challenge homo-hating, I love the phrase, homo-hating beliefs and actions on, and I love this phrase, on a not too intellectual level. Let's not be too smart. Just get it down there to the common people, to the folk, the common folk. Tell them about change, right? The change that Obama wants. I'm sorry, I don't want to get political. Change you can believe in, yes. Yes, we can. Thirdly, we're going to gain, they said we must gain access to the type of public media that, and there's a quote, would automatically confer legitimacy upon the message, while making sure that our message remains, I love this, both subtle in purpose and crafty in construction.
Would you say that again?
Sure. Gain access to the type of public media that would, quote, automatically confer legitimacy upon the message, while making sure that the message remains both subtle in purpose and crafty in construction. Now, let me give you a couple of examples in terms of all this. I mean, this sounds like nice pie-in-the-sky words, right? And you can say, oh, yeah, sure, right? But what does that all mean? Well, let me give you two examples. I can give you hundreds, but I'm just going to give you two examples. A very important tactical strategy for the gay lobby was to distance themselves from the advocacy of pedophilia, even as far back, and as far back as 1972. I mean, they said, oh, we can't get the NAMBLA folks out there campaigning with us. Because we get the NAMBLA people, people are going to get too upset. So keep them in the closet. We're going to come out of the closet, but keep them in the closet. But in 1972, that's not so, that's pretty far back. The National Coalition of Gay Organizations included in their gay rights platform a demand to repeal, quote, to repeal all laws governing the age of consent. Repeal all laws governing the age of consent. Again, the distancing tactic is the face that's shown to the mainstream public. Pedophiles? No. We only want to do it with people our own age or older or whatever, not the teenagers or not the ones below teenage. Not us. Forget it. However, let's look in some of the gay magazines as to what they say in reality that you don't read. In 1995 article, for example, in Guide, a gay magazine, you'll find the following written, and I quote, "We can be proud that the gay movement has been home to the very few voices who have had the courage to say out loud that children are naturally sexual, and that they deserve the right to sexual expression with whoever they choose. Instead of fearing being labeled as pedophiles, we must proudly proclaim that sex is good, including children's sexuality. We must do this for the children's sake." This is what they're saying in their own literature. But God forbid you read that stuff, because they don't want you to know that. So they distance themselves publicly. That's part of the strategy. A very current example that all of you are probably familiar with is the Matthew Shepard case. Okay? Now, Matthew Shepard was portrayed as this poor victim who had the crap beaten out of him by these, homo haters, and he was a helpless victim of gay hatred and homophobia. How many of you know that this death was really part of a drug deal that went bad? One. Two people in this room know that. Okay? But everyone else thinks, oh yeah, and that's why they have the Matthew Shepard Act and all this kind of thing. The man was into drugs. He had a drug deal that went bad. But God forbid that the public know that. Kirk and Madsen were very, very clear in the book about what they wanted to achieve. Let me quote again from After the Ball. "Our goal here is twofold," they said. "First, we seek to replace the mainstream self-righteous pride about his homophobia with shame and with guilt. Second, we intend to make the anti-gays look so nasty that the average American will want to disassociate themselves from such types. The public should be shown," I love this, by the way, this is just brilliant strategy. "The public should be shown images of ranting homophobes whose secondary traits and beliefs will disgust middle America." Notice, secondary beliefs will disgust middle America. "These images may include," they said, "we got to find the Ku Klux Klan demanding that gays be burned alive or castrated. Bigoted Southern men," I love this one, brother. You guys in the South? "Bigoted Southern ministers drooling with hysterical hatred to a degree that looks both cornical and deranged. Menacing punks, thugs, and convicts speaking coolly about the fags they would have killed or would like to have killed. A tour of the Nazi concentration camps where homosexuals were tortured and gassed." So if we do all that, then we're going to obviously change the mentality of America and Western Europe. And guess what, guys and gals? They have. They've won. But not yet, because truth will always prevail.
That's right.
But we got to keep fighting. We got to get the word out there. We got to do our own counter initiatives. Now, how are they doing this? One way is by influencing the next generation through our school systems. And I don't think any of you have a clue as to what is being taught in the school systems. And particularly, a lot of this is being done without the parents' full awareness of what's going on. Sex education courses are sweeping the country, but these courses that are sweeping the country have far less to do with education and far more to do with indoctrination. The NEA, the National Education Association, and the mainstream education groups fully support and push this agenda. Let me give you one example. My friend back there, over there, Greg, okay, he was at a booth in the NAA and trying to have a booth at the NEA. They wouldn't even let him have a booth at the NEA. They wouldn't even let him have a booth because his message was homo-hating. He'll also give you some other stories, I'm sure, of some other examples where he's actually tried to give out literature in various causes in the education world. They actually have a booklet out there which I'd recommend very highly. It's selling for $5, talking about the school agenda, which I really would recommend. Without trying to shock you all, however, I think it's instructive to look at the change of emphasis in our public schools from playing with crayons to playing with condoms. Or, worse, the lack thereof, the lack of condoms. Much of this gets into the school system under the rubric of safety within the schools, anti-bullying, or AIDS prevention. Let me give a couple of examples. Is that material ready yet, by the way?
Yes. I can stop it. I think we have enough for tonight.
You have enough for tonight? Okay, great. Well, I'll explain it, and then we'll give it out. Let's finish it off.
No, we have enough.
We have enough? Okay. I'm going to give you a copy of a booklet that was sponsored by GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, let me please explain to you. There's a man named Kevin Jennings, who is the latest czar, as they call it, in the Obama White House. He's actually the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Department of Education in charge of safety in the schools. And for those of you who don't know who Kevin Jennings is, he was the founder and the president of GLSEN. And he also, when he was teaching, was a 15-year-old boy. It was a 15-year-old boy, right? Or 14?
It was 15.
15-year-old boy came to him and said, hey, by the way, I'm meeting this guy in the bus stop. And, I'm having sex with him. And, boy, blah, blah, blah. And Jennings, of course, who himself was a gay man, says, oh, are you using condoms? And that was the end of his conversation. There's a teacher in the school system, 15-year-old boy. Anything about statutory rape? Anything about, taking advantage of young kids? No, not at all. He just came out with some PR statement after this finally hit Hannity and some of the other news programs, saying, well, I never apologized. He just said, well, we didn't know as much back then as we know today, or some crap. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Anyway, they distributed this booklet that you all have to children as young as 13 years old as an educational pamphlet. Please notice, I think that's on the back page or on the front page of the pamphlet, who the sponsors are. Sponsors are the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and the Boston Public Health Commission. That means that taxpayer money was used to help develop this booklet. Now here's what you're going to read in the booklet, brother. I'm just going to give you a few examples here. You can thumb it yourself, but you'll see it in there. They start off on page 1. They say, is this a great time to be gay, or what? We are faced with important challenges every day, like the right to marry, homophobia, coming out, sexually transmitted diseases, HIV and AIDS, but queers have never enjoyed more visibility and acceptance than today. The Boston area is a good place to be young and queer. This is what they're teaching in the school systems. Wonderful. Great. Now, as might be expected,